Today, we're going to be talking about self-care. And the reason why I'm leading in this topic today is because I'm out here in Vegas. You can tell by the background, I'm not in my normal studio. Today, I am shooting some episodes with Jobber and the Masters of Home Service podcast. I'm very thankful that they invited me out for season 2. And last time when we were shooting episodes, it was very tactical. It was like, hey, how to scale your business, how to grow your business. What do you do when you get stuck in a rut? This time around, they said, hey, Andy, let's talk about being mentally and physically prepared for the day. And that got me thinking, how often do we talk about self care when it comes to entrepreneurship? I know me, I'm guilty of it as everybody else. The first book I started writing was called Hustle, Struggle, Grind, the 13 Lessons of Life. And it was all about how to go harder, how to get more out of each and every day. And it was very much like show up and do the fucking thing, which I love. And yet, what I've learned over the last few years and implemented in my own life is how to also take care of yourself. The better you take care of the vessel that is you, the better you can be for yourself, others, and the team. And so ultimately, that's what we're going to be talking about today, self-care. When we think about life, self-care is being self-aware first, self-regulated in the moment, and then self-reflection. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is in the self-reflection bucket. And we think about that as the past, right? I think about self-awareness. That is, where are we and how do we show up in the future? Because we're aware of who we're going to be. When we look at self-regulation, that's in the present. And then self-reflection, obviously, is reflecting back on how we operated in the past and were we our best selves. Think about a time that you were not your best self. A lot of people want to focus on these best of times. Hey, you know what? I kicked ass that day. I was in the flow. I made it happen. And I talk about that in my book, Words Fucking Matter. How to get in the flow, what it feels like to be in the flow. I want to talk about the other end. What happens when you fail yourself and others around you? Why did you fail yourself? I've been in the military now 19 years. I've taken easily 100 suicide prevention and awareness classes because we have them almost quarterly, plus deployments. I've taught as a mass resiliency trainer with soldiers. I've taught suicide awareness and prevention classes. And in 19 years, there's one that I remember that stuck out. There was a gentleman that came in. He was a DOD civilian, which means Department of Defense civilian, prior military. He came in and taught me HALT, H.A.L.T, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And he came back and said, when you're not your best self, chances are you're one, two, three, or even four of these things. He even took it to a point where he talked about when people are suffering or going through suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, or they've already harmed themselves. And when they get put in a 72-hour hold, this is what they address. They address first and foremost hungry and tired. I've experienced this firsthand with people that I've worked with and helped support and brought them into behavioral health facilities. The first thing they do is put you to bed. So if you come in on a Friday, let's say, they put you to bed, they have you sleep. Next morning, you wake up, they feed you. They tell you, go rest in your room. They bring you out, they feed you lunch. They tell you, go back, rest in your room. They feed you again dinner and then tell you, go back in your room. You go to sleep. You wake up the next day. They feed you again. And only then, typically on the second morning, will they start talking about what was going on. And what they realized, study after study, is after that 24 to 48-hour period of eating and sleeping and having nothing else to do, a lot of what was going on dissipates because people are now focused and they can articulate what the cause and effects were, what the feelings they had were based off of facts, and why they got to a point where they thought ending their life was the best solution. And that happens every day in life. You don't have to get to the point of thinking about harming yourself or others before you can reflect back and say, you know what, I wasn't my best self. And we know this from pop culture and media. Betty White did a Snickers commercial, right? The term hangry is well known. We know you're not your best self when you're hungry and when you're tired. And then there's also angry and lonely. And I've done some research, and angry can also be anxious. They intertwine those two words, which are very good, right? Angry is typically an emotion from something that happened in the past. Anxious is something where you're anticipating something in the future and you're off. Being angry and being lonely are absolutely normal emotions, and you're going to go through those. When you couple those things with being hungry and tired, it starts to have a cascade effect where you start to have this helplessness and hopelessness, this despair, the depression, the feeling that you're not good enough. The imposter syndrome that most of us suffer from starts to really creep up on you. And it becomes this big, ugly, nasty shadow in your back. So let's talk about them. Hungry, lonely, angry, tired. When I talk about hungry, I'm not also and only speaking of hungry in the sense of needing food and nourishment. You also need mind hunger. Are you doing things that stimulate your brain? I'm talking about eye hunger. Are you staring at the same four walls over and over? Do you crave the things outside in the world? Do you crave a new stimulating environment? Talk about heart hunger. Is your resting heart rate the same all day, every day? Because you don't go out there and push yourself and test yourself and get your heart rate up. None of these things have to do with food. Les Brown, who's my favorite motivational speaker, he is my favorite video of his. I've watched long form and short form. I've watched 1 minute shorts. My favorite video of him is 6 minutes, 36 seconds, gold cast video on YouTube of Les Brown talking about how you got to be hungry. Go out and be hungry and quench that hunger. Go out and stimulate your brain with new ideas, stimulate with new conversations with new people, stimulate the hunger you have within your eyes by seeing things for the first time. Stimulate your heart by pushing yourself physically to go do something that is going to suck probably. Push yourself. There's research after research about the benefits of getting your heart rate elevated 3 to 5 times a week. That is controllable. When you're angry or you're anxious, let's talk about both of them. When you're angry, let's talk, why were you angry? What caused that anger? Rooted in fact. I start with an I statement. I feel this way when this thing happened. And now you can qualify it. Did it happen to you? Did it happen near you? Or did it happen for you? When you have a victim mindset, you'll say, this happened to me. Woe is me. This person said that thing, and that happened to me. And now I'm a victim. And I have done this myself. I probably did this yesterday, being honest. Rather say, hey, this happened for me. What is the gift within this? And now we can start to qualify. And you can even say, hey, yeah, that happened near me. And that sucked. What can you do about it? Can you go communicate effectively with that person? Can you change the situation? What can you do moving forward instead of living in the past and then unpaid for rent space in your brain? What can you do about it? And if you can't do anything about it, why worry? There's an Indian, I don't know what, a spiritual, religious guy, right? He always talks about this, and I write about this in my book, right? It's the why worry, right? So it's a very simple flow chart. Why worry, right? Is there something you can do about it? No reason to worry. Is there something you can do about it? Yes. Do the fucking thing. He doesn't say that. He says do something. I say do the fucking thing. And then no need to worry. So now we can qualify that anger. And let's talk about anxious. Same thing. Why worry? When it's something that's happening in the future, can you do something about it? Yes or no? If there's nothing you can do, accept it. When there is something you can do, the thing today to quell that anger. Shift your brain from saying I have to do something to I get to do something. The neutral is need. You need to do this thing. Gotcha. Right? Is it a have to, an obligation, or is it a get to, an opportunity? And now you can shift from anxious to nervous and nervous to excited by reframing your language as you anticipate what is going to happen in the future. Lonely. What does that mean to you? I was at a networking event a couple weeks ago with the Idea Collective. Shout out Pat Miller and all the fine folks, Susie Moon, Jennifer Bootcoast, JB, and all the fine folks over the Idea Collective. We did a charitable event a couple weeks ago with the Savannah Bananas, Jesse Cole and his team down in Savannah and their world tour. Shout out, if you're not following the Savannah Bananas, phenomenal. Jesse Cole, the one lesson I learned from him, many lessons, the one thing I stick with it, I quote him all the time, is when 99% of people do that, go do that. Do the one thing that nobody else is doing and see what happens. Therein lies opportunity. Anyway, so we're at this event, and we toured Miller Park. I got to hang out with the players from Bananas. We went to Whirly Ball in Brookfield, Wisconsin, and we had about 150 people there from The network center of the house plus the Savannah Bananas travel with 140 people. So we have 300 people in a room of whirly ball. There's bowling, there's whirly ball. It was Thursday night football game. It was the Chiefs and the Lions. There's all this stuff going on. And for 3 or 4 hours, I was on point. I was telling jokes. I was signing autographs from my books. And yet I got to a point where I had so much. I had too much. I felt lonely in a room full of 300 people. So what did I do? I sat silently and watched football for about 30 minutes. And I recharged my batteries because I was not alone. There was tons of people. I felt lonely because the connections weren't there. I felt lonely because I depleted all that energy making all these connections. And I sat there in a room with 300 people and watched football by myself because I'm a natural introvert. So although I was not alone, I still felt lonely. I felt like I wasn't making great connections. I felt I wasn't giving the best to myself. I watched football for 30 minutes. I sat back, I recharged. We went upstairs to do a charity auction then, and I had a great time. I sat with a good friend of mine, Pat Riley, and his wife, and we sat there and I felt great. And I told jokes, and I was right back to where I was. I often spend my weekends quietly by myself or only with my close family and friends. And I'm not on social media much for that. That's my time to recharge so I can get right with myself. And now people can be the complete opposite. When you're extroverted, you get energized by other people. So who are the people that energize you? If you go to networking events and you feel defeated afterwards, what is it about that is defeating? What can you do about it so you feel alive when you're there? Maybe you have relationships with family and friends where after you leave, you feel lonely because you're the ones always contacting them. You're the ones always reaching out to them. Who is it when you spend time with them? They recharge you. Those are the people that will make you feel seen and heard and loved, which is the inverse of lonely. And finally, tired. Tired is very simple. Listen to your body. There are times where you have to push through the kill zone. There are times where there is a deadline. Absolutely. Attack it. And when the thing is done, be done. Leave the laptop at home. Stop checking the emails. Leave the office when it's time to leave the office. Fulfill the obligations. The work will always be there. Get the necessary rest. Andrew Huberman was on Joe Rogan a couple months ago, and he talked about people that can operate with less than 6 hours of sleep. The average human that can operate in less than 6 hours of sleep, rounded to the nearest whole number, is not one. 99 point something percent of humans need a minimum 6 hours of sleep every night to fully invest in themselves, to be their best selves. So what can you do about that? What boundaries do you need to make? I stopped taking my laptop home years ago because I realized all I would do is take my laptop home, sit up at my desk, and sit there and stare at the screen all night. Figure out what it is right now in your life that's preventing you from getting the necessary rest you need. Attack things violently when you're attacking them. Be productive and then be done. Once it's done, put away the laptop. Once you've gone to the networking event and made your mission, when I go to networking events, I want 3 things to walk away with. 3 introductions, 3 one-on-ones, 3 coffees, 3 lunches, 3 of something. Once I get my 3, I pound sand. I go hard to get my 3, and then I leave. When I go to 20 networking events a month, that's 60 new connections every month I get. Why? Because I put in the work. 700 connections I'll make in a year when I put in the work. I don't need to get to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I need to pound sand. I need to move out from the kill zone. The way that you can prevent being tired is by being productive when you are on. So again, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you're not your best self. Use these tips and tricks to navigate life because these things are going to happen. There's no avoiding it. I talk about embracing the struggle in my book. In the military, we use the term embrace the suck. Michael Franks, shout out, going to MRT in August. I love MRT. The basis of my life is based on MRT, Master Resilience Training, that I received from the U.S. Army. 19 years. A lot of my life is shaped by what I've learned in the Army because it stuck with me. It was during my formative years. And so what you'll learn in MRT is there's activated events. There's going to be your thought around the activating event, and then the consequences of that thought. That is the basis of this theory. Activated events happen. Shit happens. It either happened in the past, it happens in the present, or it will happen in the future. Your thought about it will govern your emotions and your reactions. And I talk about this in the book. I shift a little bit of what they talk about, right? They talk about emotions and reactions. I look at it as your response or your reaction by operating with the top of your brain versus the bottom of your brain. Check out my book, Words Fucking Matter. Retrain your brain to use language that serves you, available on Amazon and now available on my website, www.andywines.com. Check out the book. So I like what you're saying here. Michael says, in theory, this all works. You're damn right. You're damn right. In theory, this all works. It is up to you to take the theory into practical application. The people that lay in bed at night and look at their phone and dead scrolling, you got to put the thing in your brain that says, put the phone down. Set my alarm, close my eyes, go to bed. Go back to your schedule. Look at where are you defeated? Where is your energy getting sucked out? What can you do to eliminate, delegate, or automate all the things that suck your time and your energy away from you? Be conscious of the HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Utilize it during self-reflection. Take 10 minutes at the end of your day and say, okay, where was I my best self? Where was I in my flow? I'm here in Vegas shooting a podcast, and I was just texting with my girlfriend, and I said, you know what? This is what I want to do the rest of my life. This is when I'm in my flow. Even coming to you guys every week live, this is my flow. For 20 minutes to 30 minutes every Monday, I get to share my ideas with the world. Why? Because I made a point to do it. This energizes me. This sets up my entire week. As soon as we hit the end stream button, I'm looking forward. In 167 and a half hours, I get to do this again. Look back at your life. Look back at your day. What puts you in the flow? What energizes you? Do more of that. Continue that. Start things that look like that. And then look back. What makes you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? What defeats your energy? And when you're in that space, how do you show up? Do you want to be the guy that's in the flow, the guy or the girl in the flow? Or do you want to be hungry, angry, lonely, tired, victim, busy? All those nasty words that do not serve you. That is a choice. Thank you, as always, for joining me as I get to experience my flow, as I get to share my ideals with the world, as I combat the things that I've struggled with in my life. And you guys have joined me in that journey. And so for that, I thank you. If you want to learn more, check out my book, Words Fucking Matter, Retrain Your Brain to Use Language That Serves You. See you scrapping. I like what he says. Why try to rewrite something that's already well written? So that's where we're going to end on. This was a very good and timely for me. Thank you, Andy. We'll see you next week. See you scrapping. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Experience Andy Wines Live.